And welcome into the Friday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Hope everybody is doing well today. The weekend is almost here. We had football last night as well, the Hall of Fame game underway. Joe Rexrode, it was exciting. Hall of Fame game was just thrilling last night.
Are you serious?
3.5 hours of NFL preseason football.
You watched that?
I watched about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, that's about what I had. About
and
5 plays.
I did it in the second quarter when it was 3-0 and all the starters were out.
Yeah, I got there too late. I did see the Chase Claypool catch, which was top 10 worthy apparently.
So.
And then Sam Sloman had a rough night, I guess.
My guy struggled. I think the legend of Sam Sloman may have been a one-time thing.
When's the last time a kicker left the Titans and wasn't like an all-pro immediately?
That's a good question.
Sam Sloman.
He's breaking the trend out there. Congratulations to the Pittsburgh Steelers on their 16-3 win against Dallas in the Hall of Fame game.
I wish I had my terrible towel now.
Yeah, just wave that thing. Yeah.
Wait, you're a Steelers fan?
Yes, I'm a Steelers fan, Joe. Where have you been?
How did I not know this?
I don't know.
All right, so I'm trying to keep up. Okay, so Big Blue Nation.
Yeah.
Kind of Syracuse.
Yep.
Kind of ish.
Mostly.
Steelers, Heat.
Yeah.
Boston Red Sox.
Oh, my God.
She's covering the entire Eastern Seaboard.
Hockey?
Preds.
There you go.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Hey, you know what? That's fine. I mean, I guess.
Wherever you want.
Can I get some explanations on some of these?
Boston Red Sox. My dad loves the Yankees, and when I was a little kid, I was like, you know what? I'm going to love the Boston Red Sox.
There you go.
So that's like Robby in Tennessee.
Pretty much.
With the Alabama fan parents, okay?
Yep.
And then Miami Heat, big Dwayne Wade fan, so self-explanatory.
Who is it?
Okay.
Who isn't? Exactly, Robbie. Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of family from Pittsburgh. Plus, in New York, none of the teams are close to me. Like Buffalo's 6 hours, Giants, they're like 3. So it's not like I grew up going to like professional sports games near me.
Well, you don't want to root for any of that crap either.
Exactly.
Buffalo's good.
Yeah, so kind of all over the place.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, well, then congrats, I guess.
Thanks, Joe.
Big preseason win.
It was. Joe Rexrode, today, when we look back in history, may wind up being the greatest day in the history of our show. I'm not sure that it's going to get a whole lot better than today. 7 o'clock today, Steve Spurrier joining us here on the program. I'm excited.
I can tell. Don't build it up too much, though. I mean, there's always a chance that Spurrier will have an interview and he's just like,
But
whatever.
Even if he does that, he's still funny.
Yeah. It'll still be funny.
Yeah.
You going to call him Steve? You going to call him Coach?
I'm not calling him coach. He's not my coach.
You can call him head ball coach.
I could call him that.
Mr. Head Ball Coach?
Excuse me, Mr. Head Ball Coach?
I mean, I should call you radio host.
You could.
Radio producer?
Yeah.
I mean, Jason Garrett.
Is that the weirdest coaching staff in the NFL? You got Joe Judge, who's kind of weird anyway, and now you throw in Jason Garrett, who apparently wants to be addressed by coach at all times when he's not the coach. He's an assistant coach. And not to mention Jeremy Pruitt and Derek Dooley on that staff as well.
Incredible.
It's a great place.
It's something else. Yeah. It's interesting, the whole coach thing.
Yeah, we'll get into that coming up a little bit later in the show today. That was quite something yesterday by Jason Garrett. And it was one thing, I think Pat Leonard had the original tweet yesterday, and then you see the video attached to it, and it's just, the guy's kind of smug. Jason Garrett a little bit smug.
Yeah, and really shouldn't be.
No.
Just be cool, man.
Yeah. Just be cool. Steve Spurrier coming up at 7 o'clock, our weekly visit with Teron Davenport at 8, and then we'll catch up with the Houston Texans at 9 o'clock. Aaron Reese from The Athletic joining us, and we'll ask him if Aaron has Houston ranked 32 in any of his lists. That's been a common theme so far this offseason.
Yeah.
Tough time to be a Houston Texans fan.
Well, who is going to be the number 1 overall pick? That's the thing. Some years
Yeah.
And actually I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is there a quarterback? I mean, apparently, they I think are going to need one. Is there a quarterback who's worthy of the number 1 pick? I mean, there's always going to be one who will eventually rise into that spot.
Sure.
But no one comes immediately to mind.
No.
But I'm sure we're not thinking of somebody. Well, you know what time it is. It's time to look at the 2022 mock draft.
Come on. Yes. Finally.
Haven't done enough of that anyway.
Only took us till August to look into that.
Well, and you know that they came out like 2 seconds after this draft ended.
That is correct.
So what's the best mock draft? Who would have the best mock draft? Like if you I trust this mock draft.
I don't know. I mean,
I'll just go to Pro Football Network. That's the first one that came up in Google.
oh, okay.
I mean,
Maybe Wikipedia, Joe.
Yeah, get
there
Wikipedia
you
in
go.
there. Why not?
okay. Well, they've got the Texans taking Sam Howell, the North Carolina quarterback. So, okay, yeah, Spencer Rattler is.
I remember the last time a North Carolina quarterback was selected in the first round. That worked out well.
Yes, it did.
A little Mitch Trubisky action.
The Lions here in this one, number 2. Lions, not the worst team. Number 2, getting Spencer Rattler from
Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either of those guys are really that good. But they will. But that's what happens. I mean, whoever the best or the perceived to be best quarterback is, they'll go 1, and then another one will probably go 2. So. But yes, we can talk to Aaron about this season, which still you got to. That's why they play the games.
Speaking of quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser out of Titans training camp. Matt Barkley on the way in, adding to the quarterback competition alongside Logan Woodside. You've talked about Deshaun Kaiser. It's been a struggle for him so far during Titans training camp. And yesterday on the off day, I saw on Twitter that Matt Barkley said he was coming to the Titans. And my immediate thought was, that's probably not good news for Deshaun Kaiser. And John Glennon reporting that Deshaun Kaiser has been released by the Tennessee Titans. So a little bit of quarterback movement yesterday.
Yeah. How many days ago was it that I wrote the story? The quarterback competition's not over yet.
It's not over.
The funny thing is, I mean, honestly, I think Kaiser has actually been better this week, but you're talking about better than pretty darn bad.
Yeah.
He was bad, and sometimes you just got to trust what you're seeing. If we're all seeing a guy who is not able to get the ball out quickly and then waits too long and then still forces a pass, and this happened too often, at some point, I still, obviously assumed that he would get, like a half a preseason game before a move was made. But here comes Matt Barkley. And a lot of people who are going to probably assume Matt Barkley is now the 2. I would caution those people.
I would caution those people as well. This is yet another quarterback that Logan Woodside has vanquished in a competition.
Right.
Maybe we ought to just say, you know what? Logan Woodside probably needs to be the backup quarterback.
Logan Woodside
we keep doubting Logan Woodside, and he continues to just turn people away that try to take his job.
Hey, Logan Woodside is a guy who has improved a ton. I don't know what that would mean if he were forced onto the field, but he looks good out there. And Matt Barkley is going to have to play really well to beat him out. Trevor. Last year, I still think it was more like Trevor Siemian just wasn't good, and Woodside was better, but neither was very good. Woodside is better now. I think has looked flat out better this camp than last camp. So he continues to progress, which is what you want in a young player.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, I mean, look, I've watched Matt Barkley at the NFL level. No, just give me Logan Woodside. That's fine.
Well, I don't remember what year it was, 16 or 17, I think. He came in here with Cleveland, actually played well.
Yeah.
He actually looked really good. I'm like, okay, so this is a little bit of what people were hoping Matt Barkley might be. They didn't win, but he actually looked kind of good. But, yes, overall, his body of work, not all that impressive. Now, he's at least had some body of work on the field in NFL games, unlike Logan Woodside. So you keep that in mind.
Logan Woodside, 1 for 1.
That's true. That is true. He's
100% completion percentage. Looked great last year on that fake punt.
He did.
So that's what happens when you run a fake punt to Logan Woodside rather than Brett Kern.
That's what happens when you run fake punts against the Lions. They will probably work.
That is true. So I wonder, from Kaiser's perspective, by the way, I mean, this is really a horrible day in terms of no more possibility for the Pfizer connection from Deshaun Kaiser to Anthony Firkser.
It is. I thought about that last night. The Kaiser to Firkser, Pfizer,
just immediately gone.
Get that shot of 6 points that you need for this offense. Just that's gone, unfortunately. Rest in peace.
So do we think that Kaiser ends up elsewhere? He's still a young guy, still a guy that was selected high in the draft by Cleveland. obviously it's not gone the way that he hoped in his NFL career, and he is now, I believe the Titans were his third stop, maybe fourth stop. I have to go back and look.
I thought fourth,
yeah.
right?
So this will be a lot of movement for a guy that was drafted just a few years ago. Does he get another shot in your mind?
Yeah, I would guess so. I mean, he's got talent. Like you said, he's a likable guy.
Yes.
People like having him around. But this is a
Good softball player too.
yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
But I mean, how much of a chance? I don't know. I mean, at some point, there was already, with him, it's obviously the big sample everyone saw was with just an awful football team and a rookie who, again, may have just been out a year too early, like his college coach said. But I thought, after the spring, I thought that he might actually be turning a corner. And then I guess it's just really more, it's just more like real football now. And
Yeah.
it just hasn't been good. It looks like a step backward. Maybe it's just that, stuff that happens in the spring should be taken with a even larger grain of salt than stuff that happens right now in camp, which we're overreacting to. So, but I would guess that Kaiser will get a shot somewhere. Someone's going to be like, there's too much talent there for him not to at least be able to be a 2.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texture that says, Matt Barkley looked good against the Titans when he was with the Bears. His receivers just couldn't catch the ball. There you go.
Okay. I believe you.
Let's go back to the text line. Jordan text again. Already mad at me. Sam Howell's a 3-year starter. Trubisky started like 13 games. So a little bit of Sam Howell disrespect on my end. Sorry about that.
UNC football fan,
Yeah,
huh?
I
Okay.
guess so.
All right. Well, no, Sam Howell is, very talented quarterback. But people love Mitch. They love
Yes, they
some
did.
Mitch. So we'll see. Yeah, we shouldn't hold what Mitch did against Sam.
I'm not.
That's.
I'm just saying.
Right, but you automatically think of that. It's natural. Hey, real quick, by the way, my frickin' charger cord was stolen last night.
What? Oh, by your family or by just somebody random?
Oh, no, in the
Okay.
house.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I don't have a working charger cord. My phone will die during the thing. I won't be able to, if I wreck, I won't be able to call anybody. So happy first day of school, kids.
Yes. Way to go, kids. Appreciate that. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on quarterbacks. Why is it so difficult for this position to translate to the NFL level? We'll get into that coming up next. Take your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you. Spinning the hits on this Friday morning.
I mean, it's a jam.
Working for the weekend.
So
We're almost there.
You know, it's exciting to spread the word that everyone should be Loverboy fans.
Yes.
Underrated Canadian rockers.
Very good. Very good song.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, that puts us in a good mood.
You're welcome, Joe. Just working for the weekend. It's our new Friday theme song.
That's right.
I love it.
Almost there.
There should be a Loverboy hotline. We got the Hall & Oates hotline. Where's the Loverboy hotline?
Maybe you can establish one.
I know 3 songs by them, but
It's all you need, as long as that one's a part of it.
one of them is Turn Me Loose,
Yeah.
which is a jam, and then one of them is Hot Girls in Love.
I don't think I've heard that one.
Just 80s gold, man. Just I tell you what.
I'll have to put that one on the Spotify list.
Anybody else know other Loverboy songs? Let us know on the text line.
Yeah, hit us up on our text line, driven by
WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. So Deshaun Kaiser released yesterday by the Titans. Matt Barkley on the way in. And that got me thinking, Joe. This is one of the things that I think is really fascinating in sports when it comes to, making that step from college football to the NFL. There's a lot of positions where, think about wide receiver right now. How many wide receivers in college football are able to successfully make the jump to the NFL? It's a lot. It's a dime a dozen. You can find some good receivers in the NFL. You just can't with quarterbacks. And forget the backup quarterback position. There's not 32 guys that can play starter in the NFL at a high level. I get it. It's probably the most complicated position in all of sports. From an athleticism standpoint, you've got grown men trying to kill you on every snap, and there's split-second decisions that you've got to make in a very quick amount of time. So it's very difficult. There's a lot of things that go into it. But it is fascinating how, with as popular as football is, as many good college quarterbacks as we see, very few can make the jump from college to the NFL. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so difficult to find these quarterbacks, whether it's at the starting level in the NFL or certainly at backup? It's just very, very rare to have 2 good quarterbacks in a room.
Well, I just think that the biggest difference, is just that the speed of guys on defense, I think, from college to NFL is just so different. It's obviously it's the best of the best, but I just feel like that's something that's been universal over time, is that just the gaps close so much faster. Obviously you're talking about people who not only the best of the best in terms of athletes, but now people who this is what they do, this is their profession. It is true that your athletic prime is between 28 and 32. We laugh about it, but it's like it's like late 20s, and
I'm right in the middle of it, baby.
See, you're in your athletic prime. You should be excited. But also, I think system has been part of that, and this is one thing I wonder, and this has been probably written a million times, but now that college systems and pro systems are actually more alike, does that, moving forward, does that mean that we're going to have like a stronger workforce at that position? I don't know. Every year there are guys coming out who people are excited about. Hey, right now, Justin Fields, the buzz in Chicago is that guy looks incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm all in on him.
I'm all in on it too. Now, I keep in mind also that the other 2 quarterbacks in camp there are Andy Dalton and Nick Foles.
Yes. The comparison is sometimes you suffer by comparison, sometimes the opposite. Yeah.
Yes.
But there's an example of pretty, young, hasn't had a lot of time at the college level, but he's ready to come in. Well, we'll see. We'll see when he actually plays. But he's coming in, and I do feel like that has been a thing. Look, when Mariota came out, so this is not that long ago. Like when Mariota came out, and I know it hasn't worked out for him, but there was still like this, but that Oregon stuff, is that really? And who are more quote-unquote pro style, who say we develop quarterbacks who can play in the league because we don't ask our quarterbacks to look to the sideline before every play. So we say, here's the read and here's the play call. That doesn't to me, instill a lot of confidence if
No.
you're a pro GM. That happens a lot. So I guess from that perspective, the system, that's not a positive. But the actual systems are much more alike, I think, than they were not that long. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when, some of the star quarterbacks in this country ran, the wishbone at Oklahoma and ran, the option offense at Nebraska, and you knew darn well they were never going to sniff the NFL. I mean, that doesn't really exist anymore. But I'm not coming up with an answer for you. Maybe it's going to get better. It's just really hard. I mean, it's just really hard to do at a high level. There's a lot of guys. I mean, look, you go around this league, the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and find tremendous arm talent and success at the college level. But to actually get it done, it's very difficult. And I think also that, it's kind of like a starting pitcher in baseball. I think confidence can definitely be shattered quickly. Mariota, just brought him up. Carson Wentz, getting hurt, the hits you take even in the NFL today, they can change how you play the game. And I think if you're thrown in too early sometimes, it can be bad for you. That's how everybody does it now. But, talk to Floyd Reese about Steve McNair. He'll swear that the way they did it is exactly why it worked out so well. And that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, everybody's going to be sitting there hoping maybe Trey Lance gets that benefit this year, but it's not going to happen. I bet you Justin Fields is out there in week 3.
Well, it's always been fascinating to me because we talk about quarterback being the most important position in sports, and I believe that it is. I think it is the most important position in sports, and yet it seems like at times backup quarterback is devalued, or there's just not enough quarterbacks out there to feel good about backup quarterback. Think about the Titans, and the Titans are not alone in this. If Ryan Tannehill goes down this year, they are totally screwed. I would assume, unless Logan Woodside comes in.
Here you
here
go.
we are again doubting Logan Woodside.
Disrespecting.
But more than likely, they're totally screwed if Tannehill goes down. Again, the Titans are not alone in that discussion. If Mahomes goes down in Kansas City, they're probably going to be in a world of hurt. That's just what it is at this level. But it's amazing that the drop-off, even from guys that are not the best in the world, like the drop-off to your average NFL starter to the backup quarterback position at times is just so steep when it's the most important position in professional sports. The few amount of guys that can play at that level. There's 32 spots in the world. And what do you feel good about at quarterbacks in the league? 20 of them? 25 of them? Maybe? It's amazing that it's that difficult to find that at the NFL level.
Yeah. No, it is. And for the Titans, I think when it started to go a certain way with Mariota, and really as time went on, I think they had Castle, and then Gabbert's a little bit upgrade from that, but they made that trade for Tannehill, which at the time was like, okay, now that's a legit backup.
Yeah.
There's a guy who started who's had some success in the league. That's a good backup. So, but then we had no idea what they were actually getting, right? And that's the funny thing. There are cases of that too, where a quarterback will look one way at someplace. Hey, there's a few guys over the years that I swear, had they not gone to the Lions, could have had totally different careers. Chuck Long, I still swear Chuck Long could have been a great quarterback in the NFL. Almost beat out Bo Jackson for the Heisman at Iowa. Injuries were a big part of it, but man, just go somewhere else. Joey Harrington, maybe not. I don't know, man. Maybe not. Maybe not with him. But where you go is also so big, because obviously, look, Deshaun Kaiser. He needs a lot of work, and maybe it's just not there. But I did watch him in college, and when you go to a place like that team with just all the issues, and talk about a confidence killer in 1 year, that can totally change the course of your career.
Just running for your life in Cleveland.
Yeah. Just losing every week, getting crushed. So situations mean so much, but yeah, I don't know. Well, I'd love to know, what was the best case in NFL history in terms of league-wide starting quarterbacks? Percentage of starting quarterbacks that were whatever word you want to use, competent.
Well, could it be now? That's the thing. Like, I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there are, I think, a lot of quarterbacks, at different stages. You got quarterbacks now playing into their 40s, still playing at a high level. You still have all-time greats in the league right now. You got a lot of young guys, I think, with potential to get better. It's not bad.
No. It's just
how could you not have 32?
exactly.
Who can play,
How can you
at a
not
high level?
find
Right.
32 guys that could play at that level in the world? It's just
Maybe
hard to do.
Maybe Drew Lock's going to take a big step this year.
Maybe so.
Okay?
We'll see what happens on that front. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the NFL, including a nice plug by Joe Rexrode coming out with The Athletic, as well as audio screams from Rexrode's computer.
I think that was actually the clip of me playing Hall & Oates yesterday.
Oh,
so
good.
At least
we got that back in the
It
show
was.
here today. Very nice. We'll get to that code up next. Right now, though, got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. And one of the things I love about betting on FanDuel Sportsbook is you get more than one shot to swing for the fences. And right now, new and existing users can get up to $25 back in site credit each day. Just place a minimum 5-leg baseball parlay, and if it falls one leg short, you get up to $25 back with parlay insurance. There's a reason FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. The app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, fun bet types like the same game parlay, and always-on promotions to let you get more action out of every game day. And when you win on FanDuel, they pay you your winnings in as little as 24 hours. In addition to the parlay insurance, if you haven't tried FanDuel Sportsbook yet, new users can place your first bet risk-free. That's right. New users get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign up with promo code ROB to get in on the action. That's FanDuel Sportsbook. Promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. A max refund of $25 per game. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Later this morning, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game Sunday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Have that opportunity coming up for you later today at 9:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. And Joe Rexrode, there's been a really cool thing at The Athletic called the NFL 100, basically counting down the 100 best players in the NFL. And you've come out with a piece from Bruce Matthews, obviously Tennessee Titans / Tennessee Oilers / Houston Oilers legend in this franchise. I think you can make a very good case. He is the greatest player that the franchise has ever seen. What did you learn putting together this piece on Bruce Matthews?
Man, a lot. Man, everybody knows Bruce Matthews is a great player. And let's face it, how many people get excited about interior offensive linemen, in football? Those who do, I love it.
Yeah.
But there was a commenter on this story he's my favorite guy to watch. I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. If your favorite guy to watch was an interior offensive lineman, that's great. But the thing is, he was so dominant, and he was on those teams, Oilers and Titans, but especially with the Oilers because Munchak certainly wasn't here. He had been retired a few years before they got here. But Munchak and Matthews, 2 Hall of Famers, together on that line. So I talked to Warren Moon for this, and Steve Watterson, the Titans' former strength coach, the Oilers' former strength coach. There's the number of hilarious stories I heard, like Bruce Matthews playing hockey and annihilating people.
Yes.
Basically looking like someone from the movie Mad Max. But Watterson, this quote, and I just tweeted out, this is a quote from Watterson, who, by the way, was with Dick Vermeil's Philly Eagles, when they had great teams in the early 80s. He's at the Olympic Training Center every offseason. And his quote, Watterson quote, "Steve McNair is a close second, but Bruce was the greatest pure athlete I've ever been around." This is an interior offensive lineman. Who, by the way, another thing I learned doing this, Matthews at USC, he had a nice mentor in Anthony Munoz, who some would say is the greatest offensive lineman ever. I think hasn't been listed yet, so he's going to be ahead of Bruce. But let's see. You're blocking for Charles White, Marcus Allen. You got Ronnie Lott and Joey Browner at safety. It's like 8 Hall of Famers on his college team.
Yeah.
But no, it's pretty amazing. I just didn't know, obviously, most of this. I mean, I love doing stories where you learn stuff. So there's a lot in there about him and his family, too. I knew his family was very good, but, they are absolutely the first family of football.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many. I mean, Jake Matthews obviously starts with the Falcons, but you think about Clay. But then their dad, I didn't really realize that Clay Sr. also played the NFL. I mean, maybe Arch Manning tips the scales, at some point. But it's those two families, but you can't argue. The Matthews family is the first family of football. And it just made me start thinking about this franchise. I mean, I don't. There are people who would say, no. Earl Campbell is the greatest. And Earl came in, I think, in the 70s on this list. These lists are. I think it's a great idea that we did this. They can easily be contested. But I think most people, when you talk about 19 seasons, you talk about never missing a game for injury. And he played every single position. He was a really good left tackle and right tackle and left guard and right guard and center.
Yeah.
No one does that.
No.
He played more than a season at every single position on the line. That's just astounding. So I think he's the clear best player in the franchise. And my question is, is there someone? We talked about Derrick Henry on the all-time great running back list yesterday. So is there a possibility that could change? I mean, it would have to be something pretty darn epic.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. If Julio Jones is not close to done, and let's say, I mean, there's no way he's going to do close to as much here as he did in Atlanta. But let's say he's so good and healthy the next couple of years. Let's say that he actually gets another deal here and is one of those freaks who plays till 37, 38 and strings together a bunch of great seasons here. So it's two teams, but that career would be arguably like the greatest receiver career. So how would you compare that?
Well, that's a great question. And to your point, like, it's interesting to attack this question. Like, are we doing the whole career or just their career with the franchise? Because if it's just the career with the franchise, I don't know that Julio Jones has got that much of a chance just based on when he's coming in.
No, it would have to be you're counting it all.
Counting it all.
Both. Like Randy Moss is interesting. Like who is Randy Moss? Who does he belong to? You know?
I guess.
I still think probably Vikings.
Yeah, I guess Minnesota.
But
he was awfully good in New England.
Right.
Oof, I don't know.
You know? I mean, it's interesting when you have players who, I mean, even Peyton, he's talking last night in the Hall of Fame game, and I mean, it was short, but he did win a Super Bowl there, and he's counting both those teams, right?
Yeah.
In his so it's if you do something great somewhere, that makes, like, if the Patriots would have actually finished that season, undefeated.
Yeah.
Do you not think of Randy Moss as a Patriot? Is that one result change that? I don't know. But Derrick Henry, to me, is the guy who, if, again, we're talking freakazoid stuff, years from now, he's still doing it at a high level, maybe he's got a shot.
So let me ask you this. Is Derrick Henry already the best running back in Titans history? And I'm going to leave Earl Campbell out of this for right now. But is he already the best running back in Titans history? When you factor in Chris Johnson and especially Eddie George as well, is Derrick Henry already clearly number one?
I don't think so. I just think that he's on the path to that. I mean, it's right now it doesn't look like he's slowing down. So just like we talked about yesterday, add another season. And again, it doesn't have to be 2,000. If you do that, that's totally different. But just add a 1,400-yard season and another. Okay, now I think he's right there.
If he does it again this year, he's there in my mind.
If he does what again?
If he gets 1,400, 1,500, 1,600 yards again this year, he's there. Because at that point, I mean, you're talking about playing at a level for 3 years that those other two just didn't get to for that many years in a row. Eddie George was great, and he was great for a long time. He was never that great for an extended period of time. So if Derrick Henry does it again this year, look, I think you can make an argument he already is the best running back in Titans history. I would make that argument. I think he is. I think it's clear if he does it again this year. I don't even think it's debatable at that point.
Well, that's the thing. So is he the greatest running back? Is he the best? Right, at his very best, is he better than those guys? I would say yes, but we're also talking about accumulation of numbers.
Well, and
Chris Johnson
longevity does have
good.
to matter. Like you can't just remove longevity from the discussion in this. It's a factor. Now, it's not the only factor, but it is a factor. But again, I think if he can do it again this year, and you've got 3 years, as I said yesterday, not really of just dominance, but elite level dominance. If you can do that 3 years in a row, he's clearly number one to me.
I think that's fair. He wouldn't quite be there in the accumulation, but it's just not something that those guys did. I mean, Chris Johnson's, again, he was something else.
He was.
You had to stop, just like Derrick Henry, but whatever you were watching, whatever team you were rooting for, like, you knew who Chris Johnson was if you followed the NFL back then. And there aren't a ton of Titans players you can say that about.
No.
McNair, George back in the day, maybe Keith Bullock, but
Hainsworth in his heyday, maybe.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's not many. Not many. And then the question becomes, like, how much longer does Derrick Henry have to do this to start, taking your sights at the Earl Campbells of the world as maybe the greatest running back in franchise history? How long does he have to do it to truly get in the conversation with Bruce Matthews as maybe the greatest player in franchise history? I mean, that's where longevity starts to matter. It's different. It's very difficult to do what Bruce Matthews did at offensive line. I mean, there's contact on every play. And look, Derrick Henry's not going to play that long.
It's astounding.
Derrick Henry's not going to play as long as Bruce Matthews did. I don't think that's very controversial to say.
No.
But how long does he need to play in order to get into that conversation.
Well, and plus, let's be honest, skill players, quarterbacks and running backs and receivers, they get way more attention.
Sure.
That's why, the fact that, some people could look at Bruce Matthews' greatest player in franchise history like, geez, you don't have a QB who's that, or you don't have a, but again, look at that career. It really is incredible. Like, how the heck could you possibly play 19 seasons that position and never miss a game because of injury? How? Yeah. Warren Moon is we did 2-a-days, full tackling, and sometimes we did 3-a-days.
Yeah.
Back then, you got your bell rung. Here's a little smelling salts.
Get the
Hop
back in there,
out
man.
there. It's mind-blowing, really.
It is. We'll continue this discussion when we come back. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. What does Derrick Henry have to do to be maybe the best player in franchise history? How important is longevity in that discussion? We'll get to that more coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Got Steve Spurrier coming up at 7 o'clock, the old ball coach, to kick off the 7 o'clock hour. Florida Gators legend. South Carolina Gamecocks legend. Not Tennessee legend.
East Tennessee legend.
Yeah. You know, it's probably one of the Vols let get away.
Yes. But he didn't want to play in that offense.
No, I don't blame him. What did they run? The single wing at that time?
I think, God, was it the single wing?
I think it was.
It was something like that. I bumped my young Spurrier story last night. I'll go back and read it. That was fun.
I'm excited. 7 o'clock. Steve Spurrier coming up here in just a few minutes here on Robby and Rexrode. Right now, discussing the Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. The NFL 100 list out at The Athletic. Bruce Matthews coming in at number 44 on that list. Joe Rexrode's put together a piece with Bruce Matthews. It is kind of amazing to just read through this and just discover how athletic that guy is. And I think I knew it at the time, even late in his career with the Titans when they moved to Nashville and became the Titans. I mean, he's an old man out there, and he's still really, really good. I mean, he's a really good player. It was unbelievable to watch Bruce Matthews early in his tenure here with the Titans. The greatest player in franchise history. What does Derrick Henry have to do to get in that conversation? Could a Julio Jones, could an A.J. Brown find their way into that conversation? Something that I think is going to be really interesting to monitor. Got some of your thoughts to get to as well.
Could a Ryan Tannehill?
Maybe Ryan Tannehill.
Huh? We're just going to ignore the quarterback?
I'm not ignoring the quarterback.
I mean, Warren Moon's
I was about to say.
Pretty freaking good, man.
He was.
Yes.
Steve McNair, not bad either. Got
Yep.
a couple of good options there as well. CD texting in. Yes, Derrick Henry is number one already. He isn't going to fall off the average. Talking about the greatest Titans running back of all time.
Okay. I mean, I'm like, I think I agree with you, actually. You have another big-time season where you're, especially like you win the rushing title this year, whatever that would be, whatever that would look like. It's hard to argue, right?
I would say so. Ben texting in. There are players that will always be associated with certain teams. Randy Moss with Minnesota, Peyton Manning with Indianapolis, and Tom Brady with New England. Derrick Henry would have to defy the odds and keep putting up top rushing seasons for another 4 to 5 years, in my mind, to be considered the greatest player in franchise history.
I would agree.
So 4 or 5 more years of this level of Derrick Henry.
So you're talking about, at that point, let's say that looks like 7,500 more yards. So then you're talking about a guy in the 13s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all-time great back territory, all-time great player in franchise history territory.
Yeah.
I agree. That's about right. Which
So-
is, it doesn't sound like, hey, 4 or 5 more years. But
That's
you
a
know,
lot.
No one expects that to happen right now. Certainly, I mean, around the NFL, I think half the NFL thinks Derrick Henry's about to retire because that's just how it goes for running backs these days. I don't think he is.
I have my doubts.
Yes.
I have my doubts, too, that, again, I could be wrong. And CD pointing out on the text line that Derrick Henry is not just going to all of a sudden fall off the average. I agree. Now, I will say at that position, it can happen very quickly. I mean, you can fall off to an average sometimes maybe strong. You could go from really good to out of the league very quickly at that position. So there's no degree of 100% certainty that Derrick Henry's just going to keep doing this. But I will say, and we've talked about it, the guy's just built different. And he seems like he's built different. And there's been zero evidence to me at this point that he is anywhere close to slowing down.
Well, and he clearly doesn't just, sit around and know that he's in great shape and he'll be fine either. I mean, he's doing a lot of things to prevent that from happening. Yeah, look, some guys are just built differently. They just are. And there's a couple guys who are still in this league, or at least still technically not retired, who demonstrate that it can happen. It's rare. But when you've done already what he's done and you really don't have any serious injuries to show for it, I mean, again, Bruce Matthews, why was he great? Incredible athlete, played all the positions, all those things, but 19 years, no games for injury. It's just some people can take the beating in this league and be okay. That is an incredibly rare thing.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jimmy texting in. Robbie, I'm from Hendersonville as well, but you're nuts to think if Henry averages 82 yards a game this year, it'll solidify him as the best running back. Chris Johnson is the best. The only thing Henry does better is stiff arm. CJ is faster, better vision, better blocker, and receiver. This is coming from Jimmy.
So we found CJ as a burner text.
I love the Robby, I'm also from Hendersonville, just like you. But let me tell you why you're dumb. Look, that's fine. I think there are people that believe we had this discussion back last fall when Derrick Henry was doing this. Is he already the greatest running back in Titans history? There are a lot of votes for Chris Johnson, a lot of votes for Eddie George. Chris Johnson was great. I think this level of what we've seen from Derrick Henry is better. Like I enjoy watching Derrick Henry more. I think Derrick Henry can, when he's got the ball in his hands, I think he does more. I think he can run you over. I think he can run away from people. Now, Jimmy's right about pass catcher. Chris Johnson was a much better receiver than Derrick Henry is. I don't think that's even debatable at this point. They're different backs. I just think that if Derrick Henry plays like the Derrick Henry we've seen the last couple of years and he does it one more time, that's better than Chris Johnson was here. But I'm not saying that Chris Johnson is just totally dismissed. He was awesome.
Yeah. No, he was an incredible talent, and that season is an all-time season. And I do think one difference, for one, is recency bias, what's happening now, but also the fact that Chris Johnson fell off so rapidly after getting the deal, and Derrick Henry gets his deal and then has his historic season after that. Right. I mean, that matters too, doesn't it?
I would think so. And we talked about the time, like, the money didn't change all that much from Chris Johnson to Derrick Henry. Every other position's going up. Running back, not so much.
Right, yeah.
Not going up all that.
Inflation everywhere else except at that position.
Tyler texting in, would a Henry 2,000-yard season be less meaningful if it took an additional game to get there?
Man, we're going to get this one a lot, aren't we?
I mean, I say no. It's never been done before, guys going back-to-back. Now, yes, the additional game, especially and I think the example we used yesterday is a good one. If Derrick Henry breaks the all-time rushing record this year and it takes an additional game for him to do it, that's when you run into some problems. And that's when, if you're Eric Dickerson, you're saying, yeah, that's cool. I did that in 16 games. He did it in 17.
Oh, and he will. Say it, yes.
He absolutely
better
will.
Believe it.
But to me, if Derrick Henry gets out there and runs for 2,000 yards again this year, I don't care if it's 17 games. That is remarkable, back-to-back seasons, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and someone texted in yesterday, so let's say he just gets to 2,000 or whatever, and in 17, so average it out. It's still like almost 1,900 yards in a 16-game season,
right,
which is just would be outrageous to me. And look at the history, too, of the backs who had 2,000-yard seasons basically across the board. There's a huge drop-off the next year. Now, some of them still had really good years the next year, but, more human. I mean, if you even get close to that, that would be, again, very rare territory. So, but I agree. If he breaks the record in 17, there's another reason to hate 17. Ron on the text line says Neil O'Donnell was a great QB for us. Also, so why do we never mention him?
Well, he played 25 games for the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, he was a nice fill-in.
He's a very good backup quarterback, and when he had the opportunity to start, he played very well for the Titans. But he played 25 games for the Titans. So that's why. You got to play a little bit more than 25 games.
I'm still mad
to
about
get in
that.
This discussion.
I'm still mad about that pick in the Super Bowl 95.
Which was not with the Titans.
No.
So if you're talking overall career, I mean, I'm still not putting Neil O'Donnell in there. But, yeah, it's a little bit better of a discussion at that point.
But
he's
not
a
really.
good player for the Titans.
Yeah, he's fine.
He is probably, I don't even think it's debatable. He is the best backup quarterback they've ever had.
What, does Tannehill not get that?
No.
Tannehill, that doesn't
he was
count?
the starter. First time he got in. Well, I guess he was the backup the first time he got in.
He was the backup for 6 games. He
right.
came into Denver.
He came into Denver. He didn't play all that well in Denver. Denver game.
He played better than Mariota.
Well.
But, yeah, they still.
You and I might have been able to do that in Denver.
They still got the goose egg.
Yeah. We're not trying to disrespect Neil O'Donnell on the show either. We love Chris Johnson. We love Neil O'Donnell. Thank you, Jimmy and Ron.
Yeah, all-time greats what we're talking about here.
I don't know if Neil O'Donnell fits in that discussion.
Not quite getting there.
Someone who does fit in that discussion, our next guest, Steve Spurrier, coming up next here on the program. The old ball coach We're looking forward to it. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the wholesaling studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are very excited to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and bring in Hall of Fame football coach Steve Spurrier. Steve, what's going on, man? Thanks for taking time to join us this morning.
Hey, Robby and Joe. Good to be with you guys.
Good to have you with us, Coach. And as you look at it, we've got a lot to get with you here today. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. What have you thought about expansion in college football? Is this a good thing for the SEC? Is it a bad thing for the SEC? Good thing for college football, bad thing? Where do you come down on all this realignment and expansion in college football?
Well, I sort of think it's good for some people, and maybe not good for other people. Obviously, the rest of the Big 12 out there, I don't think they were very happy to see Texas and OU, the the two prize universities in the conference leave. And in the SEC, that just means, hey, there's two more that's got a chance to win the conference championship. And I think it's an excellent move for Texas. They get to play Texas A&M again. They can associate with the SEC, and they can be a national recruiting machine like Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama and all those schools. So I think it's a real good move for Texas, and I look for Texas to do well this year in the Big 12. It wouldn't surprise me if Steve Sarkisian, if they don't win the Big 12 this year. Texas, they got a lot of good players. They've just been, they lost in 4 overtimes to OU. They haven't won a bunch of those Big 12s lately, but they are a program that might be ready to burst forward.
All right, before we go any further, did you ever have a problem with anyone calling you Steve when you were coaching?
Steve? Not really. It didn't bother me.
Okay.
Whatever they call me. I remember, Joe Paterno, he wanted everybody to call him Joe. And we were down at the bowl game. I had one game with him down in Orlando, the Capital One Bowl. And I kept calling him Coach Joe because everybody called him Joe. Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe. And so one of the media boys asked Coach Paterno, said, how do you like that name, Coach Joe? And he said, you know what, I sort of like it. So anyway, sometimes up north, the coaches, they tell their players, just call me by my first name. So I didn't bother me.
All right, so who gets UT, Steve, in this league? There's 2 UTs now. Who deserves to have UT?
Called UT?
Yeah.
I think probably this side of the Mississippi, Tennessee gets 2, and the other side, Texas gets 2. How's that?
Okay, yeah, that's diplomatic of you.
Very nice.
Well, they're both UT, yeah. Sometimes when you're out in Texas and somebody says UT, I naturally think about the Vols, but it's also Texas. You're right.
Well, Steve, I've got to ask you, obviously Tennessee fans, there's a lot of them around here, and they remember the 90s and the early 2000s, the rivalry with Florida, one of the greatest rivalries in college football. Obviously, you had a great deal of success against the Volunteers as well. What was it like from your vantage point to be a part of that rivalry with Florida and Tennessee and Coach Fulmer? And looking back on it, just how much fun was that? How good was that rivalry for college football?
Well, I've actually learned how good Tennessee was back in those days. I was at the SEC game, and they had a bunch of legends put in. I went in as a coach, and Peerless Price was there, the Tennessee wide receiver. He went in, of course, as a player. And he said, Coach, you realize in my 4 years in Knoxville, we only lost 3 conference games. I said, really? I didn't realize they were that good because we play them early if we're fortunate enough to beat them. We don't think about them after that. You go to your opponents. And he said, yeah, all 3 of them were the Florida Gators. And then they beat us that game in 98, the game that went in overtime, and their guy kicked about a 45-yarder, and our guy missed about a 25-yarder, I think. But that's football. We didn't play well enough to win that day, and they won it and won the national championship. So I always sort of felt like the football gods were taking care of Tennessee that year from maybe a lot of bad luck that they'd had earlier. But, yeah, we had some good games with them. It was usually like the 3rd game of the year, 3rd or 4th, right in there. So after that, though, you had to just concentrate on the rest of the schedule and trying to win the SEC and going on from there.
Yeah, Steve, I had a blast last year talking to some people, some of your buddies, and teammates, from Johnson City about you growing up in East Tennessee and, various exploits in different sports and all that. And it was interesting to hear about how the town was kind of split. You got Spurrier loyalists who were just happy you're so successful, but then you got a lot of Vols fans there, who were like, I don't know, and now he's talking about you can't spell citrus without UT and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So do you have full approval now in Johnson City, and have you been back there lately?
Well, I certainly hope so. Yeah, I do get back a lot. And in fact, I was asked to fly back up there. Johnson City, Science Hill High School plays Elizabethton, and Witten, the tight end for the Cowboys, he went to Elizabethton High School, and I went to Science Hill in Johnson City. They opened the season with a game out at East Tennessee State College, and they would like for us to come out, for the coin toss and that kind of thing. So we may do that. I may be able to get up there, and I think that's like August 20 or something like that. It's early. So anyway, that's something, because I get back at least once a year, and I haven't been back yet this year. So that might give me the opportunity to get back and see a few of my buddies. We mostly talk about baseball championships. We were very fortunate to win the state baseball championship twice, my junior and senior year. So football, we'd lose the close games, and baseball, we'd win all the close games. That's just sort of the way it went.
Hall of Fame football coach Steve Spurrier on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Steve, what are you most proud of with your time in South Carolina, taking that team to several top 10 finishes, the best teams in school history? What stands out to you the most about your time at South Carolina?
I think probably being able to match up with the top teams in the SEC. When I told my wife, let's go to South Carolina and see what we can do, she said, that means we have to play Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia every year. And I said, Jerry, that's why we're going. We get to play Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee every year. And Clemson, of course, Clemson's right in there with those guys also. But the prior 10 years at South Carolina, in those games, 40 games, the Gamecocks were 5-35 against those four teams. And we were able to, in our 10 years, we were able to actually get over 500. I think we were 41-19. But we're 5-5 with Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee in those 10 years. So, we were sort of relevant. We won 3 bowl games that put us in the top 10 and won 11 games. That was probably statistically our biggest accomplishments. But I think just being able to play with Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee and match up, pretty even with those guys was an accomplishment that hopefully the Gamecocks can get back to being competitive with those teams, but time will tell.
So, Steve, what do you think about the job Dan Mullen has done so far? Do you think that he's on the path to getting, Florida back to close to what you had it?
We're close. What we're doing here, we've sort of let our facilities go stale a little bit, and now we got a brand new, $85 million, whatever, big football building getting ready to go with all the fancy stuff that the other schools have right now. Right now, South Carolina, someone said they're about 5th in the nation facility-wise, and we're behind them in facilities. So that's the next project right now. The football offices are the same place that they were when I played there back in the 60s. So we've lagged behind in facilities, and once we get those in place, we need to recruit up there in the top 5, not the top 10, because Alabama's always number 1, seems like. And then you got LSU and Georgia right there also. So it's tough, but we've had, I think, Dan Mullen's had a couple of top 10 finishes, won bowl games, and had a bunch of players opt out for that Sugar Bowl last year. It was disappointing because Oklahoma certainly didn't play against our best players. But, I wish that opting out wouldn't happen, but that seems to be the sort of the style in college football now.
So, Steve, with that in mind, you got Alabama coming in on September the 18th. Obviously a rematch from the SEC title game last year. How much are you looking forward to that one with the Crimson Tide coming into town?
Yeah, everybody down here is looking forward to that one. It's actually, I tell people it's a 30-year reunion. Not a reunion, but we remember the game in 91 when Alabama came in, and it was one of the worst loss they've ever had. It was a close game for a while, and then we ended up winning it 35-0. And after that, Alabama went on a 22 or 23 game win streak. They won the rest of them that year, and then in '92, of course, they ran the table and were the national champs. But that was a night that a bunch of us Gators remember. Obviously, to beat Alabama by 35 points, and they'll be ready to play, of course, but our fans will be ready, and I think our team certainly will be ready. So I don't know if it's a day or night game, probably that 3:30 game, but it'll be a full swamp, and it will be loud that day or night.
So, Steve, your offense, in your coaching tenure, a lot of people had trouble going back to Duke with what you were doing offensively. Of course, with the Tampa Bay Bandits, with the Gators. I know a lot of people now are doing, the wide open style, the tempo offense, including Josh Heupel. I don't know, if you got to see a lot of, what he was doing at Central Florida, but what do you think about, one, that offense in college football today, that the fast tempo, and what do you think about Josh Heupel and kind of the state of Tennessee football and what he might be able to do there?
Well, certainly if you got a really, really good defense, then the more possessions you have, obviously more chance to score and so forth. Now, when I coached at Duke, excuse me, we were not a fast tempo because our defense was light. The guys played their hearts out, played with maximum effort, but I don't think we had a player to go play in the NFL on our defensive team the 3 years I was head coach there. But offensively now, we could run the ball as well as throwing it. Clarkston Hines was the ACC Player of the Year, wide receiver. And running back, we had a running back named Randy Cuthbert. That last year that we won the ACC, they gained over 1,000 yards, and he only started the last 6 games. We didn't know how great a player he was until he finally got a chance to play. So we tried to mix and run in the past, and we tried to stay on the field to protect our defense some. That was pretty much philosophy there, and I still believe you got to run the ball to be a championship team. You got to pass it well and run it well is the way I look at it, and I think Josh Heupel and those guys, they know what they're doing, so it'll be interesting watching them. Be interesting watching South Carolina. They got a new offensive coordinator, so it's a lot of unknown stuff going on out there.
Steve, last thing for you here, the idea and the rumors out there that the college football playoff could be expanding to 12 teams. What do you think of that? Do you like the idea of a 12-team college football playoff?
Well, I definitely liked 8 when they were talking about that. But 12, if that's what they want to go to, it does give 4 more teams a chance to make the playoff. So that may be good also. I hope they don't quit having these conference championship games. If you're a coach at a major university, you got a chance to win your conference championship. There's usually, 10, 12, 14. Now we got 16 in the SEC. But you usually have a chance to win a championship in your conference. That national championship, there's only one team going to win it. And the teams that recruit the best, like Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson, they're going to be there regardless if you got 12 teams or 24 teams, I think. But that conference championship is something a young man and his team can set their sights, set their goal, and see if they can reach it there. So I hope we don't get rid of those games.
Legendary coach Steve Spurrier has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Steve, great stuff. We really appreciate you making time for us to come on with us this morning.
Okay, Robby and Joe, good to talk to you guys up there. I think Vandy's going to be more competitive. I like the Coach Lee there. I think he's a solid guy, and I'm looking forward to watching Commodores be much more competitive this year.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as well. Steve Spurrier, our guest. See you later.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Steve Spurrier, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. That was amazing.
What a guy.
He is amazing. We'll react a
Head
little
ball
bit more
coach,
to
baby.
what Steve Spurrier had to say with us coming up next. Taking your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic here with you on this Friday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks to the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, for joining us in the last segment. I think I can now retire. I think that's it for me.
The guy's pretty awesome.
He's pretty great.
I did want him to, to maybe talk a little bit of trash to somebody. He kept it light.
He did.
Talking about that one loss to Tennessee in 98.
Our kicker missed about 25-yarder, whatever it was.
Football gods smiling down on the balls. Oh, I love it, man. Love it.
You talk about somebody that just did not give a crap what he was saying and who it offended. Steve Spurrier. Can't spell citrus without UT. Free Shoes University at Florida State. I mean, it's beautiful.
Well, what was the I got to go back to this thing. The young Spurrier thing. I wrote all these in there. He had also the one about like a library burned at Auburn, and he's like, "Oh, did all the coloring books burn up or whatever?" Come on, man. Doesn't get better than that.
Look, and I even had, I put it on my Facebook page that Steve Spurrier is coming on with us today, and there was like a friend of mine who's a big Tennessee fan, just the eye roll gif, because Tennessee fans, a lot of them still just cannot stand Steve Spurrier, which, I get it. In the 90s, early 2000s, that was the bane of your existence, was Steve Spurrier. But how can you not love that guy right now?
Right.
He's awesome.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so percentage of, Vols fans who liked Steve Spurrier in like 1995 would be zero. But now it's got to be over 50%, don't you think?
I don't know if it's over 50.
You have to look back on that time. I mean, that time also represents glory years.
Yeah.
How
many Tennessee fans right now would kill to go back to the time where Tennessee or where you were just losing to Spurrier, and that's the only thing you had to figure out was how to beat Spurrier.
Well, the thing he told us here about Peerless Price, that's the only. If they lost, that was it. That's why.
Exactly.
That's who they lost to. You got to be. I mean, you got to be looking at him different now, right? I mean, he's a treasure. Going to freaking Arby's with his Dr. Pepper. Come on, man.
It's amazing. I may or may not have watched like an hour and a half worth of Steve Spurrier videos on YouTube last night, just kind of recounting some of the great moments.
By the way, you were right. I looked back. It was the single wing.
Yeah.
That's amazing that they were in the single wing in 1962 or whatever. But
modern offense at Tennessee.
But Ray Mears tried to. I mean, he wanted him to play hoops. He was probably a better hoops prospect in the eyes of a lot of places than he was a football prospect.
Yeah.
But Florida was wide open, winging around, wins the Heisman. Rest is history.
Well, I was interested to see Spurrier's reaction to the Texas-Oklahoma question, because he went on Feinbaum yesterday and started talking about Texas. And he was like, well, they've been struggling in the Big 12. Might as well struggle in the SEC. You can't do no worse. That's what he said. And now he thinks Texas might be good in the Big 12 this year.
You sent me that clip yesterday,
yeah,
and I of course, like everybody, laughed, and I was like, we got to try to see, maybe he's on a roll of trash talk. Let's see if we can get Steve on here. And good for him, by the way, not demanding that people call him coach.
Yes,
Robby called him coach.
I did call him coach once. Hey, coach.
That's fine. Nothing. It's okay to do it,
right?
But it's not okay to demand it,
right? I would let Steve Spurrier be my coach. Very few people I would let coach me. Steve Spurrier is one of them I would.
I mean, how fun would it have been to play for Steve Spurrier?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just think about,
you're going to win.
Well, and everybody's like, even yesterday on Feinbaum's show, they had the little graphic up, and it said, head coach of Florida, 1990 to 2001, which I get it. Florida's where he had the most success, and he was awesome, and won a national championship in 96. I get all that. I think as time goes on, and you realize what South Carolina football is and has been,
yes,
you're going to really have a big appreciation of what he did there. I mean, you're talking top 10 finishes. It was kind of amazing they never really got to – they may have gotten to Atlanta once, maybe. I don't even know if they got to Atlanta one time during his time there. But it was pretty amazing to see what he did there with Clowney and Alshon Jeffrey and just the recruiting, or Lattimore that he brought in. There's just ridiculous talent at South Carolina that they have not gotten before and have not gotten since then. I think as time goes on, the job that he did at South Carolina looks more and more remarkable given what that program is.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, he used to, Dabo took some tough L's, to the ball coach early on there, and obviously started to turn the tide. But I will say this, too. Florida football was crap.
I know.
So, I mean, the thing is, Florida football, as we know it, is just because of him. I mean, they were crap for a long time, and really a lot of their history. Florida football really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And he came in with sanctions, too. But that program, he created what we think of today as a powerful program. So, in both cases, way overachieving relative to your competition in this league. But you're right. Yeah, South Carolina probably is more improbable because at least in Florida you are surrounded by the best high school talent in the country. South Carolina has a lot of talent too, but I mean that program has never been remotely close to what it was with him, and boy,
it's looking bleak.
When's it going to come back to that?
I don't know.
I like Shane Beamer. Don't get me wrong, but yeah,
it's going to be very difficult to get it back to that. And yeah, I mean, Steve Spurrier, it was kind of amazing. I was looking back through the history. He came in there to Knoxville and beat Tennessee with Duke as a head coach.
Yes.
And then all the buzz was, all right, is Spurrier going to be the next head coach of Tennessee? That didn't happen. Or they're going to buy out Johnny Majors and bring him in there. And then he stayed another year. And the scuttlebutt was, all right, it's going to be Tennessee or Florida. And at that time, to your point, Florida, I believe this was in 89. Florida was on probation, and they were awful. And Steve Spurrier goes back home, and the rest is history. Now Florida, one of the top programs in the country.
I mean, I remember watching Duke football on Jefferson Pilot broadcasts living in Virginia.
Yeah.
And it was like, Duke football's good?
Yeah.
But Spurrier also, Heisman winner, but also anybody who loved the USFL. I mean, he coached the Tampa Bay Bandits. They had like Burt Reynolds out there before games and stuff, and the winging it around offense, just a lot of fun, just entertainment. He made it fun, and I was one of those people as a general fan. Like when Florida State played, that used to be as big as any game too. Like Florida Tennessee and Florida State were like. Well, shoot. And then Florida State, Miami. That might have been like your biggest 3 national games. And, I mean, I used to be like everybody else, like, you love Bobby Bowden, and this Spurrier guy just, he's so annoying. But then over time, it's like, come on. You have to laugh at this stuff.
It's amazing.
If we had more of this, sports would be better.
That's right. Nate texting in on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. My grandmother and I love Steve Spurrier. We loved his sideline antics. Every game we wondered what was going to happen. Was a clipboard, hat, headset, official, or all 4 going to get in the game? Nate's a Vols fan, by the way. The visor.
This could be a poll question.
Could be. What would it be? Like, do you like Steve Spurrier?
Just for Tennessee. Well, yeah, for Tennessee fans, do you
have a newfound
like Steve
love for
do you
Steve
like
Spurrier?
Steve?
Tennessee fan here? Yes, I do. Love me some Steve Spurrier. He is a college football treasure.
Because, like you said, that harkens back to a great time of Tennessee football.
It does.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Those are the glory days.
Peyton Manning going to the Hall of Fame this weekend.
Did not beat Florida.
Could not beat the ball coach.
Yeah. That was a tough one. Got Danny Werfel.
Sorry to bring it up.
Danny Werfel.
Oh, man.
In 96.
Yeah.
What'd they hang up, like 63 that year? Was that 95? 1 and 2. Werfel set the SEC touchdown pass record in a game. It was something.
Well, we were talking earlier about, why aren't there more great NFL quarterbacks? I would have told you for sure. Danny Werfel is going to be a great NFL quarterback.
Didn't work out that way. Yeah. Also, we found in that interview, Steve Spurrier very excited about Vanderbilt and very excited about Clark Lee as well. Vanderbilt getting underway today with their fall camp. What do we think of the team that Clark Lee has? What is his biggest obstacles as he moves now into year 1 as head coach of the Commodores? We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball tonight on ESPN 94.9 as the Sounds face Toledo, the AAA affiliate of the Detroit Tigers at First Horizon Park. Pre-game show with Jeff Him starts at 6:50 and first pitch is at 7:05. Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Also taking on Toledo over the weekend. Saturday, first pitch at 7:05 on ESPN 94.9. Sunday, first pitch at 6:15 on 102.5 The Game. So a weekend full of Nashville Sounds baseball coming up your way. A big 12-0 win last night for the Sounds against the Mud Hens. So tough one for the Mud Hens last night. Tough one for Joe Rexrode right now.
They're still called the Toledo Mud Hens, so they're still cool.
That is true. I would imagine
the
merchandising is pretty good for Toledo Mud Hens.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, why have I never gotten a Toledo Mud Hens shirt?
I don't know. Maybe you ought to get that figured out.
It's a good idea. I'm going to
Absolutely.
get on that.
So Steve Spurrier joined us earlier in the hour and expressed his excitement for Clark Lee entering into year one as head coach of Vanderbilt. Excited to watch Vanderbilt play. Vanderbilt getting fall camp kicked off today. Actually, tonight was when they will be practicing for the first time in the fall. Joe, what do you make of kind of the situation that Clark Lee is taking over now, obviously heading into year one, the roster where it stands, how much work it's going to require from Clark Lee and this staff to get this program back to a place where it's competitive in the SEC? How would you describe the situation that Clark Lee is heading into and also the challenge of kind of navigating through this roster and building it back up from a recruiting standpoint as well?
You're going to be shocked by this, but I just had a piece about Vanderbilt that just
how
posted
about
on The
that?
Athletic. This has been an amazing week of self-promotion.
It really has been.
Man.
Did you know Joe writes for The Athletic?
Yeah.
You don't after this week. You need to pay a little bit better attention.
What's that?
I said if you don't know that Joe writes for The Athletic this week.
Right. So the headline is Vanderbilt football, king of the nerds. So here's my case, okay, for Vanderbilt to benefit. Well, we've talked some about this, but I wrote it, so I'll reiterate it. Also, by the way, I got Tim Corbin on the phone yesterday. He turned 60 yesterday.
No way.
He turned 60 yesterday. You know what he was doing on his birthday?
What's that?
Recruiting in San Diego.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right.
I mean, he's got the best baseball program in the country, and he's the head coach. And on his 60th birthday, he's recruiting.
So let me get this straight. You got him on the phone yesterday?
Well, yeah, and I'm like, is this your 60th birthday? And he was just like, come on, I don't care about birthday,
So you got him on the phone, and you didn't ask him about whether or not Jack Leiter would have started that game? And we could have figured out some pedicures at that point?
Oh, my gosh, you're right. Well,
what are you doing?
Well, he needs to say that on the air because you guys may not believe me anyway. So he needs to say that in public on the air before we get hands groping feet for the enjoyment of all.
Yes.
But, yeah, that's a good point. I should have asked. Well, we had a lot to talk about, including the fact that he was hanging out with Bill Belichick a day earlier in Foxborough, Massachusetts.
All right.
So the day before his 60th birthday, he's hanging out with Bill Belichick. His 60th birthday, he's recruiting in San Diego. But I made the case to him, and he agreed with me. Look, Vanderbilt, you can add two more good teams to this league. And if you want to be realistic, Vanderbilt hasn't sniffed an SEC championship. So, does this really hurt them? I could argue that Vanderbilt and a few other schools around the country, Notre Dame being one of them, but especially other schools like Stanford really comes to mind, have a certain pool of, football players who are good enough to play at a high level in college, are NFL potential prospects, who also are top flight students who really, really care about where they go to school and what program they're in and all that stuff. It's not a huge pool. But there's a pool, and I think some of those schools, Northwestern included, have been able to recruit all over the country some of these kids. I think Vanderbilt has been limited by its facilities. So that limitation is coming to an end with this new staff. And if you project ahead with Texas, Oklahoma, what it means to the league, what it should mean to the league in terms of resources relative to programs in other leagues, I could see where down the road Vanderbilt wins more of those battles against those peer institutions. we're projecting ahead here. But I will say this, too. Right now, they got 19 commits in this class. Right now, it's ranked 30th.
Yeah.
It was in the top 25 recently. That's not typical Vanderbilt territory. Now, a lot of programs get a first-year coach bump with the first full class. That coach can recruit. But, again, that's not typical Vanderbilt fare. And talking to recruiting people, there's belief that there are some real big-time players in this class. There's a decommitment from Notre Dame, of course, where Clark Lee was. I mean, there's some really interesting factors that are all coming together. And I would say for a program like this, well, let's face it, if Vanderbilt gets to 7 wins, 8 wins, can do that on a somewhat regular basis, that's fantastic. When you have an entertaining product, you still have to address the stadium at some point, but you could see where things could get a lot better, and better than they've been in a long time.
So how do you view the quarterback position as they head into fall camp now? Obviously, Ken Seals with the lion's share of the snaps last year at quarterback. Mike Wright, interesting player as well. And from what you hear out of the Vanderbilt camp, people are very excited about Mike Wright as well. How do you kind of view the situation that Clark Lee has at quarterback? And do you think that there is a scenario or even a likelihood that we're going to see both on the field this year with Mike Wright and Ken Seals?
Well, I think we'll see Mike Wright some for sure. And I'm not 100%. I mean, Ken Seals is the starter. I'm not 100% sure, that at some point Mike Wright couldn't really challenge him. Maybe this camp. I think Mike Wright has a world of talent. And also, Mike Wright clearly is a very important personality in that locker room. Now, both those guys, I think they both were among the first 5 players to earn their jersey number, which I guess is around 30. I hope tonight that it's more than that, even with jersey numbers.
I hope so too.
But I think Mike Wright will be on the field in various forms. Obviously, last year, Derek Mason used him as a red zone QB, and actually it kind of worked out pretty well. I mean, they had some nice, that worked for them at times. Maybe something like that. I feel like he's too talented to not give him some kind of a role. The old Taysom Hill role.
Yes.
The old Tim Tebow role in Jacksonville.
Put him in there. Why not? It's interesting. I've had a couple of conversations with Clark Lee. We've talked about the recruiting here on the show. I've been pretty impressed by what I've seen so far from Clark Lee. Now, I also say that while recognizing I think there's a chance the win-loss total this year is pretty rough for Vanderbilt. I think that's the most likely scenario. So you're going to have to find a way to navigate through that. And this is more about kind of the long-term process with Clark Lee than it is the short-term. But I will say, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, when you factor in, yes, the recruiting, but also the Vandy United Fund and the facilities that we've talked about that have just been such a big obstacle for this program, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about Clark Lee as they move forward here. Patience is going to be required because it's probably not going to take place this year.
Yeah. Now, I talked to Ari Wasserman, who is our recruiting expert at The Athletic, and he pointed out, he's like, look, Northwestern built that $270 million building on Lake Michigan. Like, it's incredible. 2018, they've been to the Big Ten title game 2 of the past 3 years. Like, their recruiting hasn't changed that much. But facilities, and I think this is a good way to look at it. Facilities keep you from getting people more than they get you people. Like, you can't have that as a knock against you. And Vanderbilt has had that as a knock against them, a big knock for such a long time.
Yeah.
That's why, I look at James Franklin. That's pretty incredible. I know that some programs were down and stuff, but to go 24-15 3 years is amazing. I mean, honestly, if you compare Vanderbilt's investment over history to this league, and probably especially in the last 30 years or so, how did you win a game?
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive, So now, if that's not something that counts against you, what does that mean? We'll find out. But I think it is interesting, and there's a lot of things that are kind of converging for Clark Lee right now that I think this is going to be a more interesting program to watch and talk about.
When we come back, it's time for Call Your Shot Friday. We need your bold prediction.